So what year was it that you were in Palestine and then you were in Patagonia just this past winter, yes?
Right. I was in Palestine literally a year ago.
Okay,
So in June of 23,
June.
and
Okay,
then January in Patagonia, which is
okay,
their summertime.
excellent. Well, I can keep an eye on the participants if any more people join us, but I'd like to go ahead and get the show on the road. Our presenter tonight is Robin Allman, who is our current vice president, and she is very creative and also very concrete in the way that she educates people about native plants, which is really a wonderful asset to have when we're tabling and with events for the chapter. Robin has been intentionally planting native plants since about 2018 and combines her love of native plants with her love of travel, which benefits us tonight because she loves to take pictures of plants wherever she goes. And we'll get to see some of what she learned on two very significant trips. So take it away, Robin.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Good evening, everybody. This is called Yalla or Vámonos. Yalla means let's go in Arabic, and Vámonos means let's go in Spanish. And so let's visit some of the flora and fauna of Palestine and Patagonia. So we can get going. Here we go. Okay. First, I'd like to start with a map of the area because honestly, before I visited Palestine in 2018, I could not have found it on a map to save my life. So on the right-hand side of the map is the River Jordan. And then on the left side, of course, is the Mediterranean Sea. And in the middle is the brown area that's technically Palestine, although it's much more broken up than that. Jerusalem is in the middle of the map, and that's real easy to find Ramallah, which is where I was living, just by going just a little bit north, so just above. Ramallah sits, and you can find Jerusalem again. It's that little red cutout there. Ramallah sits right above Jerusalem, but it also sits on the mountains. And the word Ramallah means God's heights in Arabic, or the heights of God, the mountains of God. Let's see, oh, great, there we go. And this is a view from, I guess, west of the city looking towards Ramallah on the hillside there. This is a very typical view of the landscape. This was probably once an olive grove. These trees are probably 40 to 60 years old, I would guess. And they may or may not have been abandoned at this point, but they're in good shape. Let's see. There we go. And this is just more scenery from a place near Nabi Saleh, which is between Jerusalem and Nablus. I just wanted to point out that when I went there, I thought it was going to be like desert. And it's actually, there's a lot of greenery. It's really quite beautiful in a desert type of way. And there we go. Now this is the real desert. This is the Negev desert, which is towards the south. And that is brutally hot and dry and true desert. But we got to see gazelles there. This is actually a picture that a friend of mine took while we were on the trip. That's why the quality is so much better, because he has a real camera. But on the left is a camel. We'll go back to the camelid group later on. But it's really cool to see animals in their native environment. The gazelles just popped up in front of us. It was like, oh, okay, there's gazelles, you know. Since it is a desert, I also want to point out how rich the soil is. This is a picture from the farm called Tent of Nations, which has been in cultivation since 1916. And before 1916, it was a vineyard. But you can see how deep, red, and rich the soil is. Of course,
lots of iron.
Yeah, lots of iron and lots of rocks. Okay, but they farm around it and have a beautiful little farm up there. Now, I put in this map because you're going to understand this in a minute. So when somebody's talking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this right here is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay. And this is the Wailing Wall or the Western Wall where people will pray. Okay. And this is the walled city of Jerusalem, the whole thing. Okay. This whole thing. Now, keep in mind, holy city, lots of praying going on. So what do we find there? We find the tree of heaven.
Oh my.
In the holiest place in the entire world. Yes. And there's a lot of it there. It's all over the place. It is not native to Palestine. It's not native to Israel, Syria, Lebanon. It's not native there at all. So anyway. Now, of course, no talk about Palestine would be complete without the picture of an olive tree. Now, that man is not kissing the tree. He's looking in a hole in the tree. Just want to clarify that. But this tree is documented to be over 1,500 years old. The town that the man on the right lives in is at least 800 years old. But the tree is about 1,500 years old and still produces olives. So they live a long time, but they take 10 years before they produce the first olive. And then this is something called the Greek strawberry tree, or Arbutus adranaki. The fruits are edible like strawberries, but I did not try them, so I don't know from experience. It's also an intoxicant. And also the berries apparently improve memory, especially after sleep impairment. So I don't know whether this has been used in medicine yet, but it certainly has promise for the future. There we go. And this is called a tamarisk bush, Tamarix ramosissima. It's probably not native, but then you get a gratuitous view of the Sea of Galilee from the city of Capernaum. So. And this is a fig tree. Figs are everywhere in Palestine. This was originally, the fig trees were originally found in the Jordan Valley under cultivation as early as the 10th millennia BC. They have been around a long, long, long time. This is an enormous tree. It was just huge. I think this is one branch of that tree. So. This is the spiny burnet. Although it looks dead, it's actually very much alive and it's very flexible. So it may have been used for the crown of thorns. Take a good look because you will see something very similar later on. And the flowers right here, you can see them, are the Syrian eringo, which may be spiny starwort. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. They are star-like flowers, and the sap is used as a henna substitute. So you break open the stem and dab on to make henna decorations. This is the hairy rock rose. It grows pink or white. The pink petals are all wrinkled like this. The white ones bloom before the red ones, and the white ones are smooth petals. So they have this lovely story about two princes that were getting married, and one had a red cloak and one had a white cloak. And the bridegroom that had the red cloak just threw it on the floor and didn't care about it at all. And the prince with the white cloak took care of it and kept it very smooth and pressed and everything until his wedding day. It's just a charming little story about these two beautiful little flowers. They only grow about a foot tall. And the seed pods you'll see on the right-hand side, these are the seed pods, and they pop out really easily and are being saved to promote native plants in Palestine. And this is the spiny starwort in bloom. It's a distant cousin of the aster, and it'll grow in horrible conditions like dry soil, 120-degree weather, and all that good stuff. Is anyone familiar with capers?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so this is a caper bush. This is from whence
Huh.
came your capers. I was so excited to see this. It was like, capers, oh my gosh, I sort of thought they came from a tree or something, but they actually grow in these little buds. Let me see if, I can do this. Okay. Oh, there's one right there. Let's see. So there's a little caper, there's a little caper.
Oh.
So they just grow to whatever, there's one right there. So they just grow to the size you want them, and then they pick them and pickle them, and voila. But they have this pretty little pink and white flower.
Yeah.
Quite beautiful. And if you haven't ever had capers, get a jar of them. They're in the pickle section. These are baby storax trees. These will grow up to 30 or so feet tall, and they have seed pods that are often used for rosaries because they have a slightly sweet odor when they're fully grown. And our final slide is za'atar. Za'atar is an herb. It looks kind of like oregano. It's in the oregano family, but it tastes much more like thyme. It's usually mixed with several other herbs and sesames and then put on everything. They do like a pizza thing with olive oil and za'atar, or you can take the pizza dough and put the olive oil and the za'atar on it and then roll it up and slice it, and you get these little pinwheels. I think it's an acquired taste, but it's really, if you like things that are just a little bit bitter, they're quite delicious. It's quite delicious. It's been classified as scarce, but it developed around the people who have been prohibited from properly harvesting it, as they have done for millennia, because za'atar is one of these things that has grown up with the people that lived in the area. So they're not properly harvesting it, thus it is causing a scarcity. But this is essential to the Palestinian diet: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not desserts. Desserts are sweet. Okay, now we're going to move to Patagonia, another place where everybody goes, where is that exactly? So this is the tippy tip of South America. This is Argentina right here, and this is Chile right there. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of little islands down here. Okay, so we're going to start on the Chilean side. Move down through the islands, and then come back up and end up in Buenos Aires, which is way up here. So, okay, but first we're going to take a little side trip to the place called Rapa Nui, which is also known as Easter Island. I use this picture as an example because unfortunately the Sisal agave plant that you see growing like 8 feet tall on the left-hand side of the picture is non-native and invasive. And although this is a tropical climate, so is the tropical milkweed. That was all over the island, but unfortunately not a native. But Rapa Nui has been through many, many difficult times, and they're not really quite sure what is native to the island anymore. People came from Polynesia and sailed there. Rapa Nui is literally in the middle of the Pacific. It's about a third of the way between Chile and Australia. In the middle of the ocean, it's just a little speck. So, excuse me. So the fact that anybody found it at all by sailing there is astonishing. Yeah. Excuse me. Now all you'll see is grass and these trees that they don't believe are native either. And of course, the statues of Easter Island. So now we're going to fly back to Santiago de Chile. And there I found a beautiful little pocket native garden that they were working on in a city park that they had. And they'd enclosed it so that the trees could grow a little bit. They also had really nice signs of all the different natives that were there. And the benefits of the native plants, like it's beautiful, and it regulates the water cycle and controls erosion, and needs less water. It fixes carbon, produces oxygen, and possibly has medical properties and helps regulate the climate. So they're teaching as well as showing the beauty of their own native plants. And then this was their little garden that they had set up. I think it's a year or two old based on the dates that were on the signage there. And this is the middle of summer in Santiago. It was really quite pleasant. It was like 70, 80 degrees, but not much rain. So now we're going to come down further down the coast. And this is the Antarctic beach, or Notofagas, which means not a beach, because they're false beech trees, but they're quite prevalent in Chile. And this is what a full-grown not a beech looks like on the top here. And underneath, the understory is actually calafate. And calafate is a berry that we'll talk about in a second. These are crowberries and petrums. And crowberries' generic name literally means growing on rocks, because it can grow in very poor soil. People cultivated crowberries as a source of food. The fruit ripens in the fall and remains on the shrub until the spring, making it a great source of food in the winter. The native peoples who live in this area, the temperatures here it was the middle of summer, being January. The temperatures were typically around 40 degrees, sometimes colder. The native peoples that lived there long ago did not wear any clothing. So they needed a lot of energy to stay alive through these brutally cold. The wind is constantly blowing 40 degrees in the summertime, colder in the wintertime. I don't know how they did it, but crowberries apparently helped. This is a pretty little bush called the Christmas bush. It's ground hugging and supposed to bloom at Christmas, but we saw it about 3 weeks later. But the little buds were still on there, so. This is called the greater burnet. It's an acaena. It has sticky seed pods that are very difficult to remove from clothing. You had to, if you tried to pull it off with your bare fingers, it would stick in your fingers. If you tried to scrape it off, it would stick on whatever you tried to scrape it off on. The stickers were amazing on these things, and very sharp. And here we have Azorella prolifera, but look at how much it looks like the spiny burnet of Palestine. The same kind of spiky things and all that going on. As far as I know, it was not used as a crown of thorns, though. This is called a paramela, which is a cute little name. It sort of sounds like caramel, but they're adorable little things that almost look like orchids, and tiny, tiny, tiny. They were about as big as the tip of your pinky, but just real pretty and real low to the ground. This is near where they were living. This is within in Chile and Patagonia on one of the islands. And this was also nearby. These are called sea thrifts, but the colors are just astonishing, and it's not floating on water. This is the ground that was there. It's not asphalt. It's just old volcanic soil. My favorite one is this one here. This is called the devil's berry, because apparently if you eat the berries, you will be visited by a grievous intestinal distress. So I'm afraid somebody must have figured that out long ago, but the leaves were beautiful. And this is the Falkland lavender. Tiny little flowers, maybe about an inch across. and they were growing on one of the southernmost islands we were on. And here's our friendly ragwort, their form of ragwort. But you can see the leaves are very similar to what we have here. So when you look around, this is the kind of scenery you typically see. This is on Cape Horn, which is the southernmost part. It's the place you could, if you could ever reach the island, which we luckily did, but most people don't. From there, you can hop over to Antarctica pretty easy. Winds 40, 50 miles an hour. You have to hold on to something almost all the time. And of course, the grasses and all the growth is very, very low because of the incredible wind. So typically, these will grow first and sort of block the wind, and then other seeds start to collect and they'll start growing other things in there, but the tussocks grow first. And this is more, you can see the tussocks here growing again. And this is a place called Torres del Paine, which is Payne's Peaks, basically. Now we're going to move around towards Argentina. This is called the monkey puzzle tree. It is at the what is called the end of the earth in Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the very tippy tip of Argentina. A very weird looking tree. These are more ragworts. Beautiful little starry. Let me blow that up for you. Yeah. So just cute little flowers in dry countryside. This is the calafate berry that I was talking about. It's also called the Magellan barberry. I almost didn't include it because it had barberry in the name, but this is a friendly barberry and it is native to this area. The berries are edible. They taste pretty much like seedy blueberries. They have 4 or 5 little seeds that you can eat. Fantastic in jams. They also make ice cream out of this. It's really quite delicious. And they have a wine, they have a liqueur that's made out of calafate, which was really good. Just, it grows everywhere. And then this is the Chilean firebush in Calafate, Argentina, because plants do not know boundaries. But it really looked a lot like our native honeysuckle, a lot like our native honeysuckle. I thought it was that, but it is not. And it's not even related to honeysuckle at all. And now we have some scenes from Patagonia. The wide open plains and the shrub bushes that are growing there. And once again, and the black bushes are a bush that are actually alive. They are not dead, but they turn black in the summertime and then green up in the wintertime. And the native animal, one of the native animals there is a guanaco. You'll see that in the middle right there. Looks kind of like a llama. It is related. It's in the camel species family, but and this is not a fence to keep the guanaco in or out because they basically just jump over the fence. They're very much like the deer of Argentina. This is back in Chile with just a little lake and more of the the black bush is called mulgaria. And we had, Patagonia has so much, so many clouds that you get rainbows just about 7 times a day, but they're still beautiful. This is in Calafate, Argentina, on a nature preserve. And this is the bird that's flying at me at great speed and rather terrifying was the kata bird. It's larger than an eagle. And apparently, although I was on the path, I was too close to its nest for its own comfort. So it was swooping past me. But they're quite beautiful birds. They're golden brown. In a lake that was nearby to this kata, there were also a bunch of flamingos. So lots of different things. This is a little nook in, I think this was in Chile, actually. There's a beautiful waterfall there, all different kinds of trees, but the tree on the left is not a beech tree. Same area. And I believe that's a calafate bush there on the left, but just gorgeous. Now, this is meadow barley. You can see the brown heads of the barley, like right there. It is non-native, but I put it in here because when the wind is blowing, which is pretty much all the time, but when the wind is blowing, the seed heads of the meadow barley sparkle. It is astonishing to see. I could not attach a video, but it's amazing. It almost made me think like, maybe this is why they called this the land of fire, because it looks like the whole field is on fire when this is blowing in the wind. It's gorgeous. Now we're back in Buenos Aires. This is a non-native rubber tree in Buenos Aires, but you can see by the size how magnificent it is. Even if it's not native, it's a gorgeous tree. The branches were about 2 feet thick and spread out about 50 feet in either direction. It was an amazing tree. So I just wanted to give it proper respect. And finally, when you're talking about Patagonia, you always have to have some gauchos. So here they are herding sheep. We were just riding by in a bus and got to see them in action. So anybody have any questions?
Robin, did you have to buy a native plant guide to identify?
Happily, I was given a native plant guide, but I also did a lot of work on iNaturalist. Whoops, did I? Yeah, there we go. Okay. I did a lot of work on iNaturalist this week. So.
That was fascinating. Wait, when did you go? Sorry, I missed it. The beginning.
That's okay. I went to Palestine literally a year ago this week, and I was in Patagonia in January. We also got to see penguins. That was pretty awesome. So, yeah, so it was beautiful, beautiful. We spent hours in the bus, and everybody was like, "Oh, we got to spend hours in the bus," and I was just like, "Oh, this is amazing!" we saw eagles, we saw the guanacos, we saw rias, which sort of look like ostriches. I didn't get any good pictures, but they look like smaller gray ostriches running around, and they were foxes, and it was just astonishing. So strongly recommend going if you ever can. So.
One thing I found interesting was with the trees that you could almost see the effect of the wind, the constant wind on the trees.
Definitely. Some of the tallest trees were actually at the base of mountains because they had that protection and they could grow the whole way up. Yeah, most of them were very, very short trees. Yeah. So. And we got to see glaciers too. That was pretty amazing.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, we don't really have a whole lot of business to talk about other than to encourage members to be thinking about whether you might be interested in joining us on the board in the coming year. We are striving to make the chapter a place that fulfills, participates in activities that help members achieve what they want to achieve in relation to native plants. And the best way to do that is to include the members in the leadership. So we have an open call for people to indicate an interest. If you've joined and are interested, there are descriptions of the board positions on the website. And if you have questions, you're welcome to contact the current officers just by writing to us at the chapter email, wildonesgreaterrva@gmail.com. And apart from that business, we will be having a board meeting coming up in July. That will be our Zoom meeting for July. Members are always welcome to attend. And hopefully, if we haven't all fried to a crisp by Saturday, we will be tabling at the Bumblebee Festival this Saturday at the Chesterfield Fairgrounds, and looking forward to that. And then things will go a little bit quieter for a couple of months during the really, really hot months of summer. We do hope to be working with Janet on some initiatives to help folks out in Brander Mill. Looking forward to that. And we'll be happy to include people in that effort as they may wish.
And I think Diane had a question about whether I was traveling with other people who were interested in wildlife. Kind of. One guy was very interested in mosses. He was like an expert in mosses. And another person that I traveled with was really good with photographs. So he's the one that caught the glacier calving. So that was amazing. And the guide that we had knew a lot of native plants. So she was a help too. But in terms of like, this wasn't a specifically nature oriented tour. So.
Well,
That
one other comment I'd like to add is it's interesting, and I appreciate that you included some pictures of and comments about invasive species, because we can get so focused on what's invasive here that it's easy to forget that invasive species are a problem worldwide.
Oh, when I was going through the pictures, you know, I basically was there taking pictures, and then identified them. And I lost at least 2/3 of the pictures because they were obviously non-native invasives. 2/3. And these are like, you know, and there was one woman who was not aware very much of natives. And we saw this beautiful field of yellow flowers, and they were gorgeous, but they were false hawk-speared, and they were invasive, and they're actually poisonous to the animals that graze there, you know, but there was a huge field of it. It's like, we have lost this battle, you know. There would be no non-chemical way of eliminating those plants. I mean, just astonishing everywhere you went. And this is, I mean, these are remote islands. This is literally at the end of the earth, you know, and if we can find that many invasives there. I did not see trees. Okay, I've got to say, I did not see trees of heaven. I was looking for them, didn't see them in Chile or Argentina. So they're doing something right there. But
They didn't get shipped there.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna say they didn't get shipped there because that's how they came here.
yeah, not yet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's curiosities.
Yeah, there's tons of them in Germany. They have them everywhere in Germany. Like I walk around twitching.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for coming this evening. Robin has graciously said that we can share the recording, so I will process it when it's ready on the Wild One site, and we'll get it up on our chapter's YouTube. Very enjoyable presentation. Thank you so much, Robin.
Yes,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robin.
Have a
Take
good night,
care.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.